I remember that night so clearly. My hands were shaking so much, I had to grip the wine glass with both palms just to keep it steady. The room was quiet, that kind of quiet that presses on your chest. And in the glass, I could see a small reflection of the candle flame behind me. It looked like fire, burning softly, pretending to be harmless. And with this weird calm in my voice, I whispered to myself. They say humiliation can break a person, but they never mention what happens when the broken parts start to sharpen themselves. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just changed. Right there in that silence. And the crazy part? By the time he realized what I had become, it was already too late. After that night, everything in the house suddenly felt louder in its silence. You know that kind of home where nothing is technically wrong, but the air feels stiff, like even the walls are holding their breath? Yeah. That was my life. Our house always looked perfect from the outside, polished floors, clean counters, everything arranged like a magazine picture, but somehow, inside it felt empty. Sterile. Quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful, just lonely. I used to move around that place like I was a guest in my own life. Invisible. Unseen. My husband? He walked through the same rooms like he owned not just the house, but the air inside it. He had this way of lifting his chin slightly when he spoke, like whatever came out of my mouth had to pass through some invisible filter of "is this good enough for me?" At dinner, he'd eat slowly, expressionless, poking at the food like it was disappointing him. The plates were always cold by the time he came downstairs, and I guess that matched the temperature of our marriage perfectly. The dim hallway lights never got brighter, it was always just one shade above darkness. I didn't realize it then, but that hallway was exactly what we had become, two people walking past each other in shadows. My favorite mug had a crack on one side. It had been there for months. I kept using it anyway. Maybe because it felt familiar, like something damaged that still functioned because nobody cared enough to replace it. He would look at me sometimes and sigh, and not because of anything I did, but because he believed he deserved more. He never said those exact words, but he didn't have to. He'd glance at my clothes and say things like, "Maybe wear something more mature next time." Or, "You know my friends. Just try not to look too simple." His wealthy friends, the classy people. People I was apparently not on the same level with. People he thought I embarrassed him in front of even when I hadn't said a single wrong word. And every time he said something like that, I'd give this tiny smile, tight, polite, fake. But behind it? My eyes were tired, numb. Like I was slowly disappearing. But here's the thing about pain, it leaves clues long before you understand the message. His phone started living face down on every surface. Work suddenly became more demanding. Meetings got later and later. And whenever he hugged me, on the rare days he remembered to, I'd smell a perfume I didn't own. Sweet. Expensive. Not mine. And I felt it. That shift. That cold little whisper in my gut telling me something wasn't right. But I didn't react. I didn't argue. I didn't push. The numbness was settling in too deeply. And honestly, a part of me already knew, the calm was just the quiet breath before everything collapsed. It happened on an ordinary evening, the kind where nothing feels special, but something feels off. He came home late again, the kind of late that doesn't carry guilt, just entitlement. He headed straight to the shower without a word, dropping his phone carelessly on the bed. I wasn't even thinking about checking it. Honestly, I was tired. Emotionally exhausted. Too drained to chase ghosts. But then his phone buzzed. Once. Then again. A soft message tone that sounded almost urgent. I stood at the edge of the bed, staring at the screen as it lit up the dark room. I told myself, don't touch it. My heart whispered, you already know. But my hand moved on its own. I hesitated. Just a breath. And then I picked it up. One message. Just one. But it was enough to split my reality in half. Don't forget tonight. She must never suspect. She's not our level. For a moment, I actually felt the room tilt. Like gravity shifted. Like the air had been punched out of my lungs. My fingers went cold, almost numb. Before I could even process it, another notification slid down the screen. A voice note. I pressed play. His laugh filled the room, relaxed, free, the kind he never used with me anymore. And underneath it, a woman's giggle, soft and familiar in a painful way. Then he said it. The line that didn't just hurt, it rewired something inside me. Just pray she behaves. You know her background. Try not to disgrace me. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. I just went still. A terrifying kind of stillness. The type of quiet that feels like the moment before lightning strikes. The kind of silence that isn't broken, it breaks you. My heart didn't shatter. It hardened. My body didn't collapse. It straightened. There were no tears. No shaking. Just a single, cold realization sliding through me like ice. I had been begging for a love that didn't even see me. And in that moment, that very moment, something inside me stopped begging to be loved, and started planning to be feared. After that night, something about me changed, quietly, almost invisibly. Not on my face. Not in my voice. But deep inside, in that place people can't see unless they're really looking. And he never looked. He walked out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist, humming to himself like a man with nothing to hide. He picked up his phone from the bed, the same phone that had just exposed his entire double life, and he didn't suspect a thing. He glanced at me. Just one lazy, careless glance. And then he said, "You're quiet, everything okay?" I smiled. A small, soft smile. The kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm fine." And he believed it. Effortlessly. Because in his mind, I was predictable, simple, harmless. I watched him lie to my face so smoothly that it almost looked like a skill he'd practiced for years. He talked about work stress and deadlines and meetings. Every sentence was a lie, but each lie was delivered with the confidence of a man who thinks he's above consequences. He didn't notice that I wasn't reacting anymore. He didn't see the way my eyes weren't searching for truth or reassurance. I was observing him like a scientist studies a problem they're about to solve. Calm. Precise. Detached. Every move he made became a clue. Every word he said became data. Every moment with him became part of a puzzle I was already rearranging in my mind. And at night, when he finally fell asleep beside me, breathing peacefully like a man who thought he owned the world, I'd go to the bathroom, close the door quietly, and stare at myself in the mirror. Not out of insecurity. Not out of sadness. But because I was looking at someone I didn't fully recognize anymore. There was something harder in my eyes. Sharper. Like I was studying a stranger I was slowly about to reinvent. I touched my reflection with the tip of my finger, and I whispered, "You're done hurting. Now you get to choose who you become." My aura shifted, it was subtle, silent, but powerful. I started moving differently. Standing differently. Even breathing differently. But he didn't notice. He couldn't. He was too busy believing he was the smarter one. The superior one. The one above my level. He never realized that quiet women aren't always weak, sometimes they're just calculating. And the craziest part? He thought silence meant weakness. He didn't know silence is where revenge learns how to breathe. Once the anger died down, the clarity came. Sharp. Clean. Dangerous. I didn't confront him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even let him see the shift in my eyes. Instead, I started planning. Every night, when he thought I was asleep, I'd quietly slide out of bed and sit at my small desk in the corner of the room. I kept a tiny metronome there, something I used during stressful times, just to keep myself steady. Tick, tock. Tick, tock. That soft rhythm became the soundtrack of my revenge. A countdown to the day everything he built would fall apart. I started gathering the pieces first. His phone backups. Screenshots. Photos of him entering places he promised he'd never been. Bank alerts that didn't add up. Calls recorded accidentally, or so he thought. Every secret he believed he buried. I was digging up quietly. And then, the part that surprised even me, I found a way to get close to someone in her circle. Not the mistress herself, but her friend. Her chatty, oversharing, unnecessarily friendly friend. She had no idea who I was when I started talking to her. She definitely didn't know she was giving me detailed information about the woman my husband was sleeping with. Her habits, where she worked, where they met, the gifts he bought her, even the excuses she used to sneak around. I wasn't planning small revenge anymore. I was building an entire system. And while all this was happening, I watched him more carefully than he watched himself. His insecurities became clearer than ever, the fear of failure he pretended didn't exist, the desperate need for validation, the way he obsessed over status and appearance because deep down, he never felt good enough. I stored all of it like ammunition. Meanwhile, I opened new accounts, shifted money quietly, created backup files, set my exit plans in place, not just to leave him, but to leave him with nothing stable to lean on afterward. Everything was moving smoothly, until one night, I almost got caught. He came home earlier than usual. I was in the study, recording one of his calls on speaker, the one he thought I knew nothing about. I heard his footsteps in the hallway, and for a moment, my heart stopped. I locked the phone screen and placed it under a stack of files just seconds before he opened the door. He looked at me suspiciously, like something felt off. But he couldn't place it. Because I was calm. Collected. Too composed to match the chaos he felt inside. Later that week, one of my friends pulled me aside and said, "I don't know what's happening between you two, but something isn't right. You're too quiet." I smiled gently. "I'm fine," I said. But she knew that wasn't the truth. And honestly, I didn't care. The plan was already in motion. I went home that evening, sat at my desk, and listened to the metronome ticking away. Tick, tock. Tick, tock. A soft, patient warning. Because as deep as I was into this revenge, the universe clearly had more to show me. And then, that next discovery came. One I wasn't prepared for. One that pulled the ground from under my feet. But that was only the beginning. And what I discovered next changed everything. I walked into the hall slowly, letting the chandeliers catch the shimmer of my gown. Every step was deliberate. I could hear the soft murmur of the Lagos elite, but it barely registered. This night was his, but I was about to take it apart piece by piece. He saw me. His confident smile faltered just slightly, and I felt a small, quiet satisfaction. I didn't rush. I didn't announce myself. I simply moved through the crowd, each nod and smile calculated. I was calm, controlled, and utterly unfazed. Then the lights dimmed. The screen lit up behind him. He expected a tribute video in his honor, one I'd prepared for him. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. As the video started, I felt the familiar tick of my metronome in my mind. Everything was aligned. And then, the montage glitched. Screenshots of his messages, recordings of his calls, bank receipts he thought he hid, they all flashed on the screen. And the mistress, the one he thought he could love in secret, there she was, laughing, claiming him as hers. Gasps erupted around the room. I felt none of it. I just watched him stumble under the weight of his own lies. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The carefully constructed life he believed he owned was unraveling before his eyes. And I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. I had planned this for months. When the mistress arrived, escorted by security, unaware that I had invited her, the room froze. I saw her confusion, her embarrassment, the realization dawning that everything she thought she had was built on deceit. I leaned toward him slightly, letting my voice carry just enough. "I didn't need to destroy you publicly. I just needed the truth to speak louder than you ever did." And then I tapped my phone. A single message sent to every influential guest, exposing every detail he tried to hide. His panic was delicious. His world shrank, and for the first time in years, he felt small. I stepped back, lifted my chin, and whispered, calm and clear. "Funny how the people who think you're beneath them always seem to fall the hardest." And I walked out, letting the chaos behind me solidify what I had built. If you're still watching, remember to subscribe to Stories by TE. I didn't stop walking. The whispers followed me, but I didn't turn. I watched from the edges as his friends shifted away, as sponsors checked their phones, as board members exchanged those knowing, disappointed glances. He was unraveling, and I didn't need to lift a finger now. I caught his eyes from the doorway as he stumbled out, desperate for me. His voice cracked. Please, please, I'm begging you. I'll fix everything. I'll explain. I'll change. I swear. I didn't flinch. I didn't hesitate. I simply kept walking. I left him to the consequences he created. Guests whispered, his mistress seethed, and his family looked on with disappointment so sharp it could cut glass. And still, I moved straight ahead, calm, untouchable. When I reached my car, I paused only for one symbolic gesture. I placed the cracked old mug, my last piece of that old life, on the roof. A small, silent message. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need him. I didn't need that broken past. I got in, closed the door softly, and drove away in a straight line. Calm. Powerful. Untouchable. The ashes of what he built remained behind me, but I was free. The night air was quiet when I finally reached home. Not empty, not sad, quiet in a way that felt like freedom. Every step inside my apartment reminded me that this was mine now. Mine to breathe in. Mine to fill with whatever I wanted. I sank onto my couch, letting the weight of the night settle on my shoulders. I could still feel their gasps, his panic, the way his friends had turned away from him. I smiled faintly, soft, calm, deliberate. People always fear the moment they're betrayed. But they forget to fear the person who survives it. I picked up a new mug, the smooth one I had bought weeks ago. The cracked one, the one that carried years of unnoticed pain, was gone. I had left it behind for him, a final symbol that I no longer needed broken things. I don't regret anything. Not the silence. Not the plan. Not the ending. I leaned back and let myself breathe fully for the first time in months. There was no anger left. No sadness. Only clarity. Only the sharp, cold knowledge that I had survived, and I had won. I just learned that sometimes, revenge is the only language the proud understand. I stood and walked to the balcony. The city lights stretched beneath me like a promise. I felt the breeze brush my face, and for the first time in years, I felt complete. I closed the door behind me softly. A quiet click. A subtle, final punctuation. A closed door. A faint smile. A new beginning. So tell me, was the revenge too far, or not far enough? What would you have done, if it were you in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to Stories by